$10 million.
Yeah. It is, it's a nice, round, heavy number.
It really is. I mean, it carries a lot of weight.
Oh, absolutely.
For a regular person, $10 million is basically never work again money.
Right. It's buy an island money.
Exactly. It's the kind of money where you start worrying about estate taxes and, I don't know, kidnapping insurance or something.
Yeah.
But we aren't talking about personal wealth today. We are talking about corporate survival. Because in the context of our deep dive today, well, that $10 million figure is actually terrifying.
Terrifying is honestly the right word, because that isn't a lottery win. That is the average annual budget for enterprise AI in 2025.
And that's specifically for companies with over 5,000 employees, right?
Yes, exactly. $10 million every single year.
And that's just the average. I mean, that's not just the Googles and the Microsofts of the world.
No, that is the baseline. That is the table stakes, just to, sit at the poker table of modern industry right now.
Yeah.
If you are a large enterprise in 2025 and you aren't spending 8 figures on AI, well, you are statistically an anomaly.
So naturally, I mean, when you hear that a company is dropping $10 million a year on artificial intelligence, your brain goes to a certain place.
Sure, you assume big things.
Right. You assume they are building Skynet. You assume they're completely revolutionizing their entire business model from the ground up.
Yeah, you picture robots walking the hallways, delivering espressos.
Yes. Or algorithms predicting the stock market with, 99% accuracy.
Yeah.
Or customer service being handled by a voice so human you actually fall in love with it.
You would assume that. You'd absolutely assume that kind of capital outlay, that sheer volume of cash equals massive, visible, earth-shattering transformation.
But that is not what's happening out there, is it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
And that disconnect, that massive yawning gap between the spend and the actual result is the conflict at the heart of the deep dive we're doing today.
And for everyone listening, our mission today is to unpack a really fascinating, somewhat brutal piece of analysis.
Highly brutal.
Yeah, it's titled The Capital Allocation Pressure Test for Enterprise AI.
And the central thesis of this source is going to hurt some feelings.
I really got the sense reading this that it was written by someone who has, I don't know, sat through one too many bad board meetings.
Oh, without a doubt.
It felt deeply personal.
It rings with the frustration of a CFO looking at a spreadsheet and just screaming, where did the money go?
Yes.
The thesis is basically this: a huge chunk of that $10 million is funding slide decks, not shipping products.
That line right there, that line stopped me cold. Funding slide decks.
It's a great phrase.
It paints such a vivid picture of corporate waste. I mean, think about it. You have this massive budget. You have the smartest data scientists in the room. You have the most expensive GPUs money can buy.
Right.
And what do you have to show for it at the end of the fiscal year? A really high-resolution PowerPoint presentation.
A presentation that explains what they could do, or maybe what they plan to do, or what they learned about doing.
Yeah.
It is the defining tension of the 2025 technology landscape. We have officially moved past that initial hype cycle.
You mean like 2023, 2024?
Exactly. You remember that era where just saying the letters AI on an earnings call bumped your stock price by 5%?
Oh, the AI premium.
Yes.
Even if you were just a dog food company, if you said AI-enhanced kibble, the stock just went through the roof.
Exactly, but that's gone. The market has corrected. Now the bill is actually coming due.
Investors want to see the receipts.
They are looking at the P&L and asking, where is the return? And what this source argues, and I think this is the critical distinction for anyone listening today, whether you're a CEO or a project manager or just an observer, is that the failure to get value out of AI right now isn't a technology problem.
Which is really counterintuitive, because normally when tech projects fail, we just blame the tech. We say, oh, the model hallucinated, or the latency was way too high, or we couldn't integrate with the legacy database because the API was completely broken.
Right. We love to blame the tools. It's the easiest excuse. But the source is saying, no, the models are fine.
The code works.
The code is highly capable. The compute is available. The failure here is a capital allocation problem.
Okay.
It's a business discipline problem. It's about the difference between treating AI as a shiny new toy to show off to your friends versus treating it as a hard capital asset that needs to generate a specific measurable return.
So it's finance masking as technology.
Precisely.
It's a money management issue, wearing a hoodie.
That is a perfect way to put it. If you aren't distinguishing between innovation theater and actual business results, you aren't investing. You are just burning cash to stay warm.
Wow.
You're paying for the feeling of progress without the reality of profit.
Innovation theater. I absolutely love that term, but I also kind of hate it because it's so painfully real.
We have all been there.
I've seen it. I think we've all seen it. The hackathons, the colorful sticky notes on the glass walls, the beanbag chairs in the break room.
But no actual product shipping.
Exactly. But before we get to the solution, and we definitely will get to this pressure test, which is a really practical tool, I want to clearly understand the landscape.
Sure.
We have this $10 million figure floating around. Where is that money actually going right now? Because reading the source, it suggests that the ground has shifted pretty dramatically under our feet in just the last 12 months.
It has shifted massively.
Yeah.
If we look at the hard numbers provided in our source material, we see a structural change in how budgets are even categorized.
Okay.
And look, I know this might sound like boring accounting stuff, but it tells a huge story about corporate psychology. The most telling statistic is this: 60% of AI programs are now running on permanent budgets.
Let's pause right there on permanent budgets. What does that actually imply? Because previously, this was all coming out of what? Slush funds?
Basically, yes. Slush funds. A few years ago, AI spending almost always came from an innovation fund or a one-off research and development grant.
Right.
It was experimental money. It was casino money.
Casino money.
If you lost it, well, it was for science. You wrote a white paper about what you learned, you patted everyone on the back, and everyone went home happy because you, quote-unquote, learned something.
Right, because it was R&D. And you don't expect R&D to pay the light bill next month. You expect it to maybe pay off in 5 and 10 years.
Exactly. But now, 60% is permanent. That means it has moved from the lab line item to the operations line item.
So it's a fixed operational cost now.
Yes. It's sitting there right next to your electricity bill, your cloud hosting fees, and your payroll. It means you are hiring full-time staff who expect a paycheck every 2 weeks, not just hiring freelancers for a 6-week pilot.
That makes sense.
It means you are signing multi-year contracts for compute.
That feels like a massive shift in mindset. It means the expectation from the top down is that this is no longer a science experiment. This is part of the furniture.
It's part of the furniture.
Yeah.
And the volume of activity matches that shift perfectly. The source notes that companies are pushing 11 times more models into production across major platforms compared to last year.
11 times more.
11 times.
That is wild.
That is an exponential explosion in activity. So if anyone tells you, oh, we're still early or we're still figuring out the basics, the data firmly disagrees.
The experimental phase where we just tinker with chatbots on a Friday afternoon is largely over.
Completely over. Companies are shipping, they're pushing code, they're turning features on for real customers.
Okay, so they are shipping models, they have permanent budgets, they are scaling up aggressively. And there was another stat in the source that really stood out to me, and it was about infrastructure.
The shift to infrastructure.
Right. I think it said nearly 40% of generative AI spend has migrated from experimental to infrastructure.
Yes. This is crucial to understand if you want to know what's happening right now.
Help me parse that. When we say it moved to infrastructure, are we talking about buying more GPUs? Is this just cloud credits? What does that actually mean in plain English for a business?
Think of it like plumbing or electricity. When a technology is brand new, you buy it in small pieces just to test it out. You buy a small portable generator to see if it can power a single light bulb in your garage.
Sure.
That is experimental spend. When it becomes infrastructure, it means you are officially... Exactly. It is no longer a novelty. It is a dependency. If the AI goes down, the business stops.
Yeah.
That is what infrastructure means.
It's kind of like when companies first started using the internet.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. At first, it was just, let's have a website so people can see our physical address and our phone number. It was a brochure.
Just a digital billboard.
But eventually it became, our entire global inventory system runs on the web. Our HR department runs on the web. Our sales team runs on the web. It's no longer an internet project. It's just how business is done.
Exactly. And if you just looked at those macro numbers, the 60% permanent budget, the 11 times more models, the 40% infrastructure spend, you would look at that level and say, wow, the industry is maturing perfectly. Everything is moving in the exact right direction. We are winning. But there is always a but in these deep dives.
I was going to say, if everything was absolutely perfect, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about burning $10 million on slide decks.
No, we would not. Because the source points out a massive glaring divergence. While the money is moving in the right direction broadly towards permanence, towards infrastructure inside individual companies, the gap between the leaders and the laggards is widening incredibly fast.
So let me get this straight. Even though everyone is spending the 10 million, some people are getting a rocket ship and others are getting a really expensive paperweight.
Or a really expensive slide deck. And the critical question we have to answer today is, why?
Right.
If everyone had the exact same access to the technology, which they largely do, the foundational models are accessible via API to almost anyone with a credit card, and everyone has the budget, which they clearly do, why is there such a massive gap in actual business results? Why is Company A revolutionizing their profit margins while Company B is just burning cash in a parking lot?
And the answer to that brings us to one of my absolute favorite analogies in this entire deep dive, the science fair.
The science fair syndrome.
I love this image so much. The source argues that most C-suites still run AI like a science fair with executive judges. I can just visualize this perfectly. You remember middle school science fairs, right?
Oh, vividly.
You've got the trifold poster board, you use the glitter glue for the title.
The potato clock, the baking soda volcano.
The potato clock, exactly. But in a corporate setting in 2025, it's not a potato clock. It's a sleek, interactive demo of a chatbot that writes Shakespearean poetry about the CEO.
Right.
Or it's an image generator that puts the company logo on a superhero flying through space. Or a tool that summarizes meetings that nobody actually listened to in the first place.
That is uncomfortably accurate. The science fair mentality is characterized entirely by performative innovation. Think about the fundamental goal of a science fair. Is the goal to build a product that you can sell to a real customer the very next day? When you built that baking soda volcano, were you planning to scale it globally?
No. The goal is to get a blue ribbon. The goal is to get an A on the report card so your parents are happy.
Exactly. The goal is purely to impress the judges. In the corporate world, those judges are the executive committee or the board of directors. The engineering team builds something not because it solves a massive bleeding pain point for the customer, but because it will look fantastic on a screen in the quarterly review meeting.
So the teams are actually incentivized to build things that look cool in a 5-minute demo rather than things that solve a boring structural problem.
Precisely. It's all about the wow factor.
Oh, yeah.
Does this make us look cutting edge? Does this make for a really good press release? Does this make the CEO look smart on a CNBC interview?
And if the answer is yes.
It gets funding.
Yeah.
Instantly. But the source makes a brutal, unflinching assessment here. It says, and I quote, "That's not a strategy problem. It's a capital allocation problem, wearing a badge that says Innovation Lab."
Ouch. That stings. So the Innovation Lab badge is basically a shield.
It is absolute armor.
It protects them from the harsh reality of the P&L sheet.
It creates a safe harbor from any real financial accountability. Whenever finance asks a question, they just say, "Oh, don't ask about ROI. We're the Innovation Lab. We're exploring the distant future. You can't put a price tag on the future."
Right.
And this leads directly to the second analogy in the source, which I think is even more powerful than the science fair.
The gym membership.
The source quotes a colleague who says, "Your Innovation Lab might have the same ROI as my gym membership. Technically active, functionally decorative."
Oh man, that hits way too close to home. I mean, I have a gym membership. I pay the monthly fee. It comes out of my checking account every single month like clockwork. It's an auto draft. So technically speaking, if you look at their books, I am an active member. If you look at the gym's database, my name is green.
But do you actually go?
I mean, I have the card. It's right there on my keychain.
Right.
I drive past the building on my way to work. Occasionally I'll go in and buy a smoothie because they honestly have really good smoothies.
Huh?
But do I lift weights? Do I run on the treadmill? Not nearly as often as I should.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is functionally decorative. You have the membership so you can tell yourself, and probably tell others, that you are a person who values fitness.
Yes.
It signals identity. I am a healthy person because I possess a gym membership. Companies do the exact same thing. They have AI labs so they can confidently tell the market, we are an AI-first company. The lights in the lab are on, the servers are humming loudly, the smart people from Stanford are hired. It is technically active.
But just like me not actually sweating means I'm not getting fit, these companies aren't shipping products, so they aren't getting any ROI. It's purely vanity.
It is a vanity metric through and through. It makes the company feel modern. It soothes the deep anxiety of the executives who are secretly terrified of being left behind by their competitors. They look at the $10 million budget line and think, well, we are spending the money, so we must be doing the hard work. But spending is not the same as executing.
I think that distinction right there is what separates the winners from the losers in this space. The losers confuse activity with achievement. Yep. They think just because the GPU fans are spinning really fast, the business is somehow growing. They confuse motion with actual forward progress.
And to really drive this point home, the source gives us a very specific, grounded case study, a tale of two companies.
I really like this part.
It's a direct comparison between an automotive OEM, a major traditional car manufacturer, and their direct competitor. And this story really crystallizes the difference between the science fair approach and the serious business approach.
Let's start with Company A, the laggard. This is the company that perfectly represents the science fair model.
So, Company A is living the absolute science fair dream. Last year, they had 14 distinct AI pilots running simultaneously.
14.
14.
I mean, that sounds impressive. If I'm a shareholder or an analyst looking at their quarterly report, I'm thinking, wow, 14 different initiatives. They are swarming this problem. They are innovating across the entire board.
On paper, yes, it looks fantastic. They had a beautiful presentation deck. They went to the board of directors. They showed off all 14 of these pilots. They probably had slick marketing videos, interactive demos on iPads, maybe even a live tailored chatbot specifically designed to flatter the chairman of the board.
Oh, absolutely. They pulled out all the stops.
And the source literally says the board clapped.
Well, of course they clapped. It looks like real progress. It feels like massive momentum. It feels like the company is really doing something.
But here is the brutal reality check. Zero P&L impact.
0 out of 14 projects.
Zero. Not a single dollar of profit created, and not a single dollar of cost saved that actually hit the bottom line.
How is that even statistically possible with 14 separate projects? You'd think entirely by accident at least one of them would make $1.
You would think so, but it happened because not one of those 14 pilots even had a payback target.
Wait. They didn't even have a target. They weren't even trying to make money.
No, because it was categorized as innovation. It was about learning. When you frame something as a science fair project, you don't ask about the payback period, you ask about the coolness factor.
Right.
This was performance art, not business. They were building incredibly complex solutions, looking desperately for problems, rather than taking a massive existing problem and fixing it. They were solving the problem of how do we look cool to the street, not how do we run a significantly better car company.
Okay, so that is Company A. Lots of frantic activity, lots of applause, 0 money. Now let's look at Company B, the leader.
Company B took a radically different approach. They didn't have 14 pilots. They had just one AI workflow.
Just one. See, that sounds risky. Or maybe just lazy.
It does.
If I'm sitting on that board, I'm genuinely asking the CEO, why are we only doing one thing when our main competitor is doing 14? Are we falling behind? Are we being too conservative?
It sounds boring. And that word is the absolute key here. They found one specific, deeply unglamorous application: warranty claims processing.
Warranty claims. Okay, I am already asleep. That is literally the least sexy topic I can possibly imagine.
It is incredibly unsexy. It is tedious, data-heavy, mind-numbing, rule-based work. It involves reading thousands of poorly scanned PDFs, checking expiration dates, cross-referencing obscure part numbers across different databases, looking at blurry photos of dented bumpers.
Yeah.
It is exactly the kind of thing that absolutely does not get a standing ovation at a flashy board meeting. You cannot make a cool cinematic video about processing a warranty claim.
Watch as this AI cross-references the VIN number. Yeah, no one is clapping for that. It's not magic, it's just paperwork.
Exactly, it's pure paperwork. But they embedded their AI specifically into that workflow. They automated the ingestion of the claim from the dealership, the verification of the policy details, and the final approval or rejection decision. And the result? Low single-digit millions were covered in under 12 months.
So they actually made millions of dollars back in less than a year. Real cash.
Real hard cash. Not projected future value, not soft efficiency gains, where you supposedly save an employee 2 hours a week, but you don't actually reduce your headcount. This was actual recovered capital. They stopped paying out fraudulent or expired claims. They processed the valid claims much faster, improving dealer relations.
Wow.
The exact description the source gives for Company B is, and this is my favorite quote, boring, effective, permanently funded.
Boring, effective, permanently funded. I mean, that should be printed on a T-shirt and handed out to every tech executive in the world.
It really should be. Because that is what actual success looks like in 2025. Company A had 14 really cool things that lost money. Company B had one incredibly boring thing that made millions. And the fundamental gap between these two companies wasn't that Company B had smarter data scientists. It wasn't that they had better computers or a bigger budget.
It was a mindset shift.
It was that they asked one specific different question before they wrote a single line of code.
And what was that question?
The question was, what's the payback period, not the roadmap?
That distinction right there seems subtle at first glance, but I have a feeling it is everything. Roadmap versus payback. Can you really unpack that for us?
It is the defining difference between potential and accountability. Think about a roadmap. A roadmap is a promise.
Right.
It says, okay, in Q4, we will launch this beta feature, and in 2026, we will completely revolutionize customer service, and in 2027, we will conquer the global market. It is forward-looking, it is highly optimistic, it sells the dream, and most importantly, it buys the executive team more time.
It's the trust me, bro, of corporate strategy. Just give us another 6 months. The model is still training. It's going to be amazing.
Essentially, yes, it relies entirely on faith, but a payback period. A payback period is a financial contract that says we're spending X amount of dollars today, right now, and we will get X plus Y dollars back by this specific date on the calendar.
It forces absolute discipline.
You cannot hide behind a colorful roadmap if you have a payback clock actively ticking down above your head.
This honestly reminds me of that old business saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality.
Yes.
The roadmap is the vanity. The payback is the reality.
And this harsh reality leads the source to make a really bold, somewhat controversial prediction about the future of leadership in this specific space. We're so used to thinking of the winners in corporate tech as the grand visionaries, the Steve Jobs types, the ones with the massive reality-distorting ideas.
Right, the disruptors.
But the source explicitly says that the VPs who actually win the next 18 months won't be the ones collecting the most pilots. They won't be the ones with the biggest, flashiest portfolios of cool projects.
Who will they be?
They will be the ones who, and again, quoting the source here, kill the most beloved projects that can't move a P&L.
Whoa, that is extremely counterintuitive.
It goes against human nature.
It does. Usually you get promoted for launching things. You get a massive year-end bonus for shipping. You get a feature in a tech magazine. You're saying the actual winners are going to be the executioners?
These strategic executioners, let's call them. Because right now, large companies are heavily bloated with these gym membership AI projects. They are actively draining capital, they are hoarding scarce compute resources, and they are draining executive management attention.
Yeah.
The leader who has the political courage to look at a project, even a project that the CEO personally loves, even one that makes for a fantastic demo at a conference, and say, this has no clear path to payback, we need to kill it today, is the one who ultimately saves the company's margins.
But that takes a tremendous amount of guts. I mean, it is incredibly hard to kill a zombie project, especially if it's perceived as cool or cutting edge.
It's politically dangerous.
You instantly become the bad guy in the office. You become the person who is seen as saying no to the future. Nobody wants to be the dinosaur.
It requires utter ruthlessness regarding capital. But think about it clearly from the shareholder's perspective. Would you rather have a VP who launches 10 super fun projects that lose $10 million, or a VP who ruthlessly kills 9 of them and doubles down on the one boring project that makes $10 million?
Put that way, it's incredibly obvious. But in the daily, messy politics of an actual office building, that is a really hard road to walk. It is socially difficult to be the buzzkill in the room.
It is very difficult, which is exactly why we need a framework. That brings us to the practical tool the source provides. Because it's super easy for you and me to sit here behind these microphones and say, just be ruthless. But how do you actually do it in practice?
Right.
How do you decide what stays and what goes without just becoming an emotional argument? You need an objective standard, so it's not just your personal opinion against their cool slide deck.
Right. We need a definitive test, a way to grade these projects objectively so the math makes the decision for you. And the source gives us one. They call it the CAT-TAP test.
The Capital Allocation Pressure Test, CAP.
I love a good business framework. So let's walk through the 3 pillars of this test one by one. Because if you are listening to this right now and you want to know if your company or even just your specific department is acting like a tourist or a native, this is the checklist. This is the audit you need to run tomorrow morning.
Exactly. Let's start with pillar 1, which they call the cost stack.
Okay, pillar 1, the cost stack. What is the specific question we need to be asking here?
The defining question is, Do your three biggest cost centers run at least one AI workflow in production?
Three biggest cost centers. Let's break that down so it's super clear. If I'm running an airline, what are my biggest cost centers?
For an airline, it's going to be fuel, aircraft maintenance, and crew logistics.
Okay.
Fuel is a massive, volatile expense. Maintenance is incredibly expensive and causes cascading flight delays, and making sure the right pilots are in the right cities at the right time is a logistical nightmare.
Got it. What if I'm a major retailer, like a big box store?
Then your biggest costs are supply chain logistics, inventory management, and probably returns processing. Moving physical boxes from point A across the ocean to point B is where all the money is tied up.
And if I'm a global bank?
For a bank, it's compliance operations, fraud detection, and customer support call centers. The thousands of people sitting on phones and the armies of lawyers manually checking paperwork.
Okay, I see. So the test is, are you actively applying AI there to those massive, boring, profoundly expensive problems? Or are you applying it to, like, the summer intern's blog post generator?
Exactly. That is the perfect way to look at it. If you're using expensive AI to write punchy marketing copy for your corporate Instagram account, but your global supply chain is bleeding cash every single day and you aren't touching it, you are failing the CIP test.
You're focused on the shiny periphery, not the bleeding core.
Yes. If the answer to Pillar 1 is no, what does that actually mean for the company?
Well, the source is remarkably blunt about this. It says, if the answer is no, you are funding margin compression by default.
Funding margin compression. That sounds like sanitized business speak for setting piles of money on fire.
It's actually worse than that. It means you are actively paying to make yourself less competitive.
Let's explore that.
Because here is the brutal reality. Your competitors will absolutely apply AI to their core cost centers. If they use AI to reduce their supply chain costs by 10% and you don't do that, they can suddenly lower their retail prices and still make the exact same profit margin.
You can't.
You can't. You're trapped. You either lower your prices to match them and you start losing money on every sale, or you keep your prices artificially high and you lose all your customers. Either way, your margins get squeezed to death.
So AI shouldn't be about the fun, creative stuff on the edges of the business. It should be launching a direct attack on the biggest, ugliest numbers on your spreadsheet.
Precisely. That goes directly back to the boring is better concept. The biggest costs in any enterprise are usually the most aggressively boring things. No one wakes up thrilled to go optimize freight logistics reconciliation data.
No.
But that's exactly where the $10 million is hiding.
Okay, that is Pillar 1. Attack the cost stack. Now let's move to Pillar 2 of the test, budget migration.
We touched on this concept a little bit earlier with the 60% statistic, but explain why this matters so much as a definitive test.
This one is a pure litmus test for organizational maturity. The question you have to ask is, has AI spend moved from experiment to permanent line item?
Right.
If you look closely at your departmental budget and all your AI spend is still categorized as innovation or special projects or discretionary R&D, you have a serious problem.
Why is that a problem?
It means the organization as a whole doesn't trust the technology enough yet to commit to it financially. It's still just dating the technology. It hasn't married it. It implies that at any given moment, if the quarter looks a little rough, they might just turn the whole thing off to save a quick buck.
The source has a really great biting line for this. It says, if none has moved to permanent, that's not strategy, that's tourism.
Tourism. It is such a perfect insult for the corporate tech world.
It really is. Think about a tourist. You're just visiting a city. You're taking some photos for your social media. You're buying an overpriced souvenir t-shirt. You're walking around looking at the famous sites.
Right.
But you don't actually live there. You aren't building a house. You have zero skin in the game. You don't care about the local school board election or the property taxes because you are getting on a plane and leaving on Tuesday.
And tourists eventually go home. When the season changes or when the travel budget runs out, the tourists leave the island.
Yeah.
If you want to actually stay in the game and win, you have to move in. You have to pay the local taxes, or in this business context, you have to pay the permanent line item costs.
You need to operationalize the spend. Because if it's not in the core operating budget, it is the very first thing that gets cut when the macroeconomy turns sour. But if it's infrastructure, if it's running your claims processing, you can't cut it without shutting down the entire business. That is exactly where you want to be. Indispensable.
Indispensable, exactly. Which brings us to Pillar 3. And honestly, this feels like the hardest one to actually execute, the payback clock.
This is definitely the one that gets people fired.
Oh, without question.
No.
The rule for Pillar 3 is strict. a 12 to 24-month payback target per AI initiative. No exceptions.
12 to 24 months. That is a breathtakingly tight window.
It is extremely tight for enterprise tech, which usually operates on 5-year cycles.
I feel like in tech, especially if you look at Silicon Valley over the last decade, we have been completely trained to hear, oh, just give us 5 years to build out the platform.
We're in build mode.
Yeah,
We're
right?
scaling globally. Don't worry about profit yet. We need to capture the market share first, then we'll monetize.
Yeah.
We've been culturally trained to accept massive financial losses for years on end.
Yeah, that era is over. It is dead. That was the zero interest rate policy era. That was the growth at all cost era when money was virtually free. We are now firmly in the show me the money era.
Yeah. Capital is expensive now. The source says this very clearly. Can't clear the bar, kill it, even if the demo got a standing ovation.
There is that phrase, standing ovation again. The author brings it up multiple times. It really emphasizes how deeply seductive the boardroom applause can be to a product team.
It's a drug.
It is. It's so hard to kill something that people genuinely like. It's incredibly hard to kill something that makes the CEO smile during a stressful meeting.
But applause is dangerous. Applause validates the ego of the presenter, not the business model of the company. This rule, the 24-month clock, forces you to completely ignore the applause and look coldly at the math. If you spend $1 million today on this tool, exactly when do I get that million back?
And if the answer is in 3 years, or we don't really know yet, or, oh, well, it's hard to quantify exactly because it's really about brand equity and employee satisfaction.
Then you kill it instantly.
You kill it.
You kill it, or you force the team to rethink it entirely until it fits inside that 2-year window.
Yeah.
This constraint forces ultimate discipline. It forces you to scope the project down from a massive world-changing dream to something manageable, targeted, and high impact.
It stops the science fair sprawl dead in its tracks.
Exactly. It actively stops you from building another potato clock and forces you to go build the warranty claim processor.
So if I apply this key IP test rigorously, I look at my cost stack, I ensure I'm attacking the top 3 expenses, I check my budget migration, making sure I'm a permanent resident and not a tourist, and I set a strict 24-month payback clock. If I do those 3 things, I stop being a tourist.
You stop being a tourist and you stop running a middle school science fair. You actually start running a profitable business.
But here is the really tricky part about all of this. Most of the people listening to us right now probably aren't the CEO. They might not be the CFO holding the ultimate purse strings. They might be a mid-level project manager, a senior developer, or maybe a director of IT. What can they practically do on Monday morning? Because they can't just walk into a meeting and unilaterally cancel the CEO's favorite pet project without getting escorted out of the building by security.
No, doing that would be career suicide. Do not do that. But the source has a very specific, actionable piece of advice for those exact people. It says, if you're not the one making the call, be the one asking the question in the next review.
So basically, be the annoying person in the meeting.
Be the most valuable person in the meeting. It might feel slightly annoying to the person presenting the flashy demo who just wants their easy applause, but to the health of the business, it is absolutely vital.
How does that look in practice?
When someone puts up a slide showing a glorious 5-year roadmap, you raise your hand and ask quietly, "This looks fantastic. What is the precise payback period for phase 1? When someone shows a really cool beta pilot of a new chatbot, you ask, is this currently attacking one of our top 3 cost centers, or is it an additive expense?
You empower yourself by bringing the financial rigor to the room. You subtly change the terms of the conversation.
Exactly. You do not have to control the budget to powerfully influence how that budget is spent. By consistently asking these Can't-P test questions, you force the conversation to shift from, isn't this cool tech, to, is this actually valuable to the business?
You change the entire culture of the room just by asking the question.
Yes. You signal to the executives that you care deeply about the company's long-term financial health, not just the fleeting tech hype.
And by doing that, you might just save the company from completely wasting that $10 million budget.
Or at the very least, you save your own specific department from wasting 6 months working on a zombie project that is inevitably going to get canceled anyway when the CFO finally looks at the numbers.
The source wraps up this entire analysis with a really sharp challenge. It's almost like a final audit for the reader, or in our case, the listener. It poses this direct question. Of your current AI initiatives, how many have a documented payback period under 24 months? And who in your org owns that number?
That specific word, owns, is the most critical word in the entire document.
Yeah, talk to me about ownership in this context, because usually when we say ownership in a corporate setting, it means who gets to take the credit for the successful launch.
Right. Everyone desperately wants to own the launch. I launched the new AI bot. Great. Put it on your LinkedIn profile. Get your promotion. Give a talk at a conference. But in this specific financial context, ownership means something entirely different. It means who gets fired if the dollar number isn't hit.
Oh, that is a very different kind of ownership.
They're very different.
That is the scary kind. That's the can't sleep at night because the deadline is approaching kind of ownership.
It is terrifying, but it is entirely necessary because it is incredibly easy to own the upside. But who actually owns the payback? Who is the specific named human being whose reputation is next to the target that says, this specific workflow will save $2.5 million by next February?
And if you can't name that person,
If you can't name that person, nobody owns it. It is adrift.
it's like the tragedy of the commons, but for corporate accountability. If it is everyone's project, it is no one's responsibility.
Exactly. If the answer to the question is, oh, the innovation team owns it, or the cross-functional AI task force owns it, that means absolutely no one owns it. A committee cannot own a P&L target. It needs to be Sarah owns it, or David owns it.
Because if David knows for a fact that his job and his bonus depend entirely on hitting that $2.5 million number, he isn't going to build a slide deck.
No, he is not.
He isn't going to waste a single second of his time on Potato Clock. He is going to build a boring product that actually works and saves the money.
He will become ruthless about efficiency. And that is exactly what you want.
So we have covered a tremendous amount of ground here today. Let's do a quick recap. We started with the harsh reality check of that $10 million average budget. We walked through the traps of the science fair and the gym membership projects that are technically active but functionally decorative.
Right.
We looked at the tale of the two auto companies, one endlessly chasing bored applause with 14 pilots, and the other quietly chasing cash with one boring warranty claims workflow. And finally, we broke down the 3 pillars of this AAP test.
It is a really sobering deep dive, honestly. It strips away a lot of the magic and the hype that surrounds AI right now.
It does. It makes AI feel, well, it makes it feel like traditional business, like accounting, like plumbing.
And ultimately, that is a profoundly good thing.
It is, because hype bubbles always burst. Business results actually sustain companies. We saw this exact same pattern with the dot-com bubble back in the day.
The exact same pattern.
The companies that just threw up a flashy website and bought a Super Bowl ad with a sock puppet mascot, they completely vanished when the money dried up. But the companies that used the internet to fundamentally fix their supply chain and their logistics, they became Amazon.
Exactly. If we connect this specific AI moment to that bigger historical picture, the companies that embrace this boring, rigorous, financially disciplined approach are the ones that will actually survive the AI transition over the next decade. The ones playing with science fairs are just going to burn through their $10 million and wake up wondering what happened.
So here's my final thought for everyone listening today. And this is something I really want you to chew on over the weekend. Go back to your organization tomorrow or on Monday. Look at the absolute coolest AI project you currently have going on, the one everyone is talking about on Slack, the one that was featured in the All Hands Company newsletter.
The one with the really professionally designed logo.
Yes, the one with the cool custom logo. Look at that project and ask yourself honestly, is this a gym membership? Does it just look really good on paper, or is it actually sweating? Is it doing the heavy lifting for the business?
That's a test.
And more importantly, if you walked into the project lead's office right now, closed the door, and asked, who personally owns the payback number on this? Would they have a name to give you? Or would they just pull up the presentation and show you the roadmap again?
If they open up the presentation and show you the roadmap, you need to run.
Run fast. Or better yet, be the one to step up and stop the madness. Bring the CIP test to the table. Don't be a tourist in the land of AI. Move in, pay the bills, and make the technology actually work for you.
Extremely well said.
That is it for this deep dive. We will see you all next time. Stay curious, but stay accountable.